Hello, spooky crew. Our tote bag drawing is officially closed, and we just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who entered. We are so grateful for the love and the support, and we have loved reading your reviews. Missed the tote? No worries. We're still sending out high-quality vinyl stickers while supplies last. Just email us proof of your rating and review along with your mailing address to thespookydarlings@gmail.com, and we'll get one headed your way. Quick promise, your address is only for mailing the sticker. No emails, no selling info, no funny business, just spooky gratitude. Thanks again for supporting the show. You are the reason we do this. You're listening to The Spooky Darlings, a podcast where three sisters share stories of true crime, the paranormal, and anything intriguing or mysterious. This week, Nettie, that's me, will continue the story of Christopher Wilder. If you have not listened to last week's episode, I recommend starting there. Here is a brief recap to refresh your memory. Last time, we uncovered Christopher Wilder's deadly modeling scam and his escalating violence, which likely claimed the lives of Robin Adler, Sherry Ball, Tammy Leppert, Rosario Gonzalez, and Elizabeth Kenyon. Wilder became aware that the police were closing in on him, and he had admitted to a therapist that he would do anything to stay out of prison. And before we begin, we want to give a quick content warning. This episode contains discussions of sexual assault, murder, and violence. We know these subjects can be difficult, so please take care while listening, and this episode is not for young ears. If you need to skip this episode or step away, we completely understand. We will be back with lighter fare soon. Now, onto the episode. So now we're getting into part 2. So we learned that Wilder had a pattern of avoiding consequences for his behavior. Even though he had been caught, plenty of evidence, he always seemed to get out of it, either got like a reduced sentence, a slap on the wrist, or, as we know, he is due in court in Australia April 3rd of 1984. So it was coming up. And so in the last episode, 2 women had gone missing, both of them connected to Wilder, Rosario Gonzalez and Elizabeth Kenyon, both of them in Miami, Florida, and both within about a week of each other. So the detective that the Kenyons had hired, which was Detective Whitaker, was starting to put all of the pieces together and close in on Wilder. He was able to get the police on board, and the police were aware that Wilder had a pattern of avoiding consequences at this point, so they were trying to make sure that they had their evidence solidified before they made their move to arrest him. However, in hindsight, this was not a good idea. They probably just should have arrested him on what they had. Someone leaked to the press that Christopher Wilder was the lead suspect in the disappearance of Beth Kenyon and Rosario Gonzalez. A reporter leaked it to the press, and they didn't use his name, but they did say the police have a suspect. He is an Australian race car driver, and they described Christopher Wilder. So when he read it, he knew that the police were closing in on him. Meanwhile, there was about a 15-day period from when Rosario went missing and about a week after Beth went missing when the police actually came to Christopher Wilder's work and they questioned him. They waited for him at his office until he came in, and all of the detectives there just said he was like as cool as a cucumber, just not rattled at all. Kind of acted like, oh yeah, I can answer your questions. On the day Beth Kenyon went missing, well, it couldn't have been me. I know you have a witness ID, because remember they had a witness ID.
Oh my gosh.
Couldn't have been me because I was working that day. And then he turns to his work partner, Larry Kimbrell. Last episode, I couldn't remember his name. It's Larry Kimbrell. And he said, wasn't I here all day? And they said that Larry looked a little bit ruffled and was like, yeah, you're here. You were here. You were working, I'm sure. I was in and out, but you were probably here all day.
Gosh.
Then Larry kind of gave this like halting alibi, but in the alibi, he said, yeah, so I don't know. It's weird that girl's car was found at the airport. Larry said that. The police had not released that information. They had not released it to Wilder. They had not released it to the press or to the public. The only person that knew was Beth Kenyon's family. And so Christopher Wilder had told Larry that Beth's car had been found at the airport. And then Larry accidentally let that slip, and the police were like, well, how did he know? And then Chris, just as quick as possible, he said, well, when I called Beth's mom, she told me. But when the police asked Beth's mom, and I think her name is Dolores, when they asked Dolores Kenyon, did you tell Chris about Beth's car? She said, absolutely not. I did not tell Chris about Beth's car. So that was one more piece of evidence. The only way Chris could have known that the car was at the airport is if he had been part of it, if he had put it there. Then it was kind of like that night or the next day after being questioned that the article was released in the newspaper where the reporter said that the police had a suspect and were just gathering info. So he very quickly spent the next couple of days getting all of his affairs in order. He had 3 show dogs, so he put them in kennels. He gathered up his credit cards. He went and asked his business partner, Larry, for Larry's credit cards. Larry gave them to him.
Oh my gosh.
Just come on, Larry.
And this is in the States.
This is in Miami. Boca Raton, Florida.
Oh,
which is close to Miami. I think Boca Raton and Miami are right next to each other, but I am not a geographical.
I think Boca Raton is like on the Gulf side of Florida. I think it's like near Sarasota.
Did you know that Boca Raton means the rat's mouth?
Yes.
No.
I try not to think about it, but yes, I did know. You guys, I hate to break it to you, Boca Raton is near Miami, and it is not on the Gulf side of Florida.
Boca Raton is about 48 minutes north of.
But we're in Boca Raton, Florida. He's got his business partner's credit cards. He's preparing to flee.
Yeah. He took a bunch of money. He took a bunch of cash out of the bank and spent 2 days cleaning his house. And then he bought a 1973 Chrysler New Yorker, which was not, like his flashy
he wasn't
Porsche 911.
For that card, yeah.
Yeah, but I think a Chrysler New Yorker is still a really nice car, but it's like 84 now. So it's like a 10-year-old. It's going to be more blend in, just a nice. He bought one with low mileage, so he bought one that worked well. And then he failed to show up. Remember, he was in mandated therapy. He failed to show up for his therapy appointment. So the police went and questioned his therapist, and she was really reluctant to give information because of patient confidentiality, but she did admit that he might be dangerous.
Oh my gosh.
So this was about March 15th that he missed that therapy appointment. He was supposed to be in Australia on April 3rd for his hearing to finish the trial for the sexual assault of the 2 teenage girls. And he checked into a hotel on March 15th in Daytona Beach, Florida. So he's working his way north. And at this point, he had really honed his skills. He knew exactly what to do to get women. Like, he had spent years experimenting on what worked and what didn't work to get women to trust him, to get them alone and isolated. Like, he had done this. And remember, there were reports of women. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but there were reports that women said, yeah, he approached me and he said he was a modeling scout. And we went to empty house because he works in property development, and he took photographs of me, and nothing happened, but I just never heard from him again. So I feel like he spent years knowing what he wanted to do, but not doing it yet, but kind of gathering the skill set.
Yes. Or maybe even I think it sometimes escalates. Like, he, got off on tricking these people and then getting them into increasingly compromising type things. And then, that wasn't enough. You know what I mean? I feel like maybe that was part of it.
As escalating, giving himself little permissions to I can do this, I can take it to here.
Okay, so he knew how to dress. He knew the tools to have. He had the business cards printed with various different names. He didn't have his own name on the business card. He would pretend to be someone else. He had that expensive camera around his neck, and that was the tool he used. Obviously,
camouflage.
Hi, I'm a photographer. I'm holding this camera. It's
yeah.
And he also knew who to target. He was not interested in educated, sophisticated women. He was interested in naive young girls who were trusting, who didn't have life experience, and, who didn't know to be wary of men like Wilder. I mean, I've been there.
Oh, yeah. The amount of risky situations I put myself in, especially in my young 20s.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I'm not in a cult or dead.
Do you guys remember when I was working at the gas station when I was 18 or 19, and that guy asked to photograph me? Do you guys remember this at all?
Oh gosh.
No, I just want to first say, Haley, you're not in a cult anymore. And Nettie, tell us the story because I don't remember.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is that while I was doing the research on this, I actually looked up that photographer because I was like, that was creepy. It was really creepy, but he had photographed other girls, local girls. I had seen photographs, he had photographed David's friend, Tamara Whalen, who was so beautiful, and some other really pretty girls. And he showed me photographs. He brought them into the gas station because he would kind of every time he'd come in, he'd be like, oh, hey, I wanted to show you the pictures of Ona that I took. Aren't these gorgeous? Here's the pictures of Tamara that I took. And I went with him. Like we drove clear out into the mountains, did a bunch of photos of me. In fact, that headshot that I used for my theater stuff when I had short hair and I was like in that mint green dress. That was my headshot for years. But then on the way back, and mom knew, like I told mom I was going and mom was like, I don't know about this. And I was like, Mom, he's photographed all of these people. It's fine. He just, he wanted to go the back way. And the whole time I'm thinking, I should have really said no. He didn't do anything, but it was weird. And it was like, this was reminiscent of it. So, okay, let's get back to the story.
You nailed that.
Christopher Wilder's first victim. Well, not the first victim. He's had victims before this, but this is kind of like officially the start of his spree where he knows he's going to get caught. So he just goes berserk. Everything before this was not considered part of his killing spree. So Elizabeth Kenyon and Rosario Gonzalez are not considered part of his killing spree. It was when he felt like he was going to get caught for those that he started this terrible rampage.
Oof.
Okay, so let's talk about Colleen.
Okay.
So Colleen was a junior high student in Daytona Beach. And so Christopher Wilder had just checked in on March 15th into a hotel in Daytona Beach.
And what year is this?
1984.
Okay.
She was pretty, 5'2", blonde. She had hazel eyes. And Colleen had fractured her arm as a kid. So she had a healed fracture. Okay, so remember that. On March 15th, she skipped school to go to the beach. And this was not uncommon. Her parents were divorced and her dad was not living with them or really an active part of her life. And her mom was ill, so didn't have a lot of control over Colleen. So she had a bit of a history of being wild. She left. She was wearing a 2-piece purple swimsuit and a Ron John surf shirt. So she did not come home that day. So her mom just thought she had run away again and was staying with some friends. But Colleen had always come home after 2 days, had never been gone for more. So after 4 days on March 19th, Colleen's mother reports her missing.
Oh, gosh.
So the police question Colleen's friends and they find out that Colleen had been offered $100 for a modeling job by a man who matched Wilder's description.
Oh my gosh. And $100 in the 80s is like, and when you're a teen,
$100
you're
now.
rich.
But I mean, I don't know how that would translate, but that would probably be like $600, like $500-$600 just for a couple hours worth of work.
Yeah.
Well, she wasn't seen again. She went to the beach and wasn't seen again. But Wilder was absolutely 100% in Daytona Beach. There were reports of him on the beach asking girls to model for him, saying he had a gig that needed to happen right then. He often used this like sense of desperation, like, well, it's got to be right now. Here's, this is how much it pays. It's got to be right now.
Geez.
Basically, there was footage of him from a bank that showed him there. Also, the credit card, Larry Kimbrell's credit card was used at the hotel there, and he stayed there for the whole weekend. 3 weeks after Colleen's disappearance, a body was found by fishermen on the banks of a nearby lake. It had been very hastily buried, like almost no effort put in, and her knee was sticking up out of the soil. And so initially she matched Colleen, what Colleen was wearing, Colleen's description, but there was no evidence of a fracture. So the coroner didn't even have like Colleen's family come up to try to ID her because they said, well, it's not her. There's no fracture.
Oh my gosh.
However, so for, that was in 1984. So for 30 years, they didn't know what happened to Colleen.
30 years?
In 2011, they did DNA testing and it confirmed that body was Colleen. They don't know what happened, like with the coroner, that he couldn't see the fracture. But it was probably a big mistake that they didn't actually like have her family come and try to ID the body. So that was on March 15th that 15-year-old Colleen Osborne went missing. So Teresa Waite Ferguson went by Terry on March 18th. So 3 days after Colleen went missing, she also went missing in Merritt Island, Florida. And Terry had her parents, Fran and Don. Don was her stepdad, and there was no mention of her real dad. So I think her stepdad was like the only father in her life, and they were really close. And then she had a boyfriend named Dan, and they were planning a future together. And she was really beautiful. She wanted to be a model, but she was also working on her beauty license because she just wanted to work in the beauty industry. She always,
oh my gosh.
She said she couldn't model. She wanted to work in the industry. The last day that anyone saw her, She had left a note for her mom that said, "Wake me up at 10," but she had actually gotten up before then and gotten out of the house. She headed to the mall by 11 o'clock, and she was supposed to meet some friends there, but her friends all canceled. So she was at the mall by herself. Her boyfriend, Dan, tried to find her later because they were supposed to meet up, and Terry hadn't shown up. And then he called the parents, and the parents hadn't heard from Terry. And, this is pre-cell phone, so everything's just like, payphone or however you get a hold of someone.
Yeah.
Dan hadn't heard from her. He went to their usual spots. He couldn't find her anywhere. So he called Terry's parents back. And then, so the boyfriend is Dan and the stepfather's Don. So then the father, Don, who actually was a detective in Merritt Island, Florida, he went to try to scout the mall and see if he could find Terry. And he couldn't find her. He found her car. It was locked. And through the window, he could see that the clothes that Terry had worn that day were inside, folded on the seat.
Oh my gosh. Creepy.
He waited there. He's a cop. He knows that a 21-year-old going missing isn't going to immediately go into a missing person report. So he waited there until midnight to see if she showed up. And he was kind of fully expecting her to show up and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I made you worry."
Here's this very reasonable explanation.
At midnight, her boyfriend, Dan, came and took over, and he kept watch until 4:30. Still, she didn't show up. So then they were really starting to worry. Don went and investigated the next day. He told the police, and he went and he did his own investigation. He questioned people at the mall. Well, first he went and he waited at Terry's work, and she never showed up. So he went to the mall and he canvassed and he questioned. And there were people who said they saw her. Well, a shop girl said that she bought a shirt and saw her walking out with the shirt. And then there was another clerk that saw her talking to a man with a beard with a camera around his neck. Oh. And that she sat there smiling and nodding at him. And then later, when they showed this clerk a photo lineup with Christopher Wilder in the lineup, the clerk positively identified Wilder immediately.
Oh my gosh.
On that same day, there was this strange instance because a tow truck driver, so this is March 18th, 1984, tow truck driver got a call about a car, a 1973 Chrysler New Yorker that was stuck in the sand. And he said it was weird because normally when he gets calls like this, it's a couple that was trying to be alone, and he'll come and find an embarrassed couple who got their car stuck where they were trying to have a makeout session. And he said this guy was alone and he thought it was weird. He also paid with the credit card of Larry Kimbrell.
Oh my gosh.
But he didn't pay much attention to it. So anyways, she was gone. They couldn't find Terry. They didn't know where she was. And we'll find out a little bit more about that later. But her stepfather said that he used to be really irritated because Terry was, he said, so considerate that she'd call at 2 or 3 in the morning to tell them if she wasn't going to be home. "Hi, I'm sorry. I'm just out and I'm partying. I know it's 2 a.m., but I wanted to let you know so you wouldn't worry." Oh, and he said it used to be really irritating because he'd be like, "Oh my gosh, you just woke us up." But he said he would just give anything to get a 2 or 3 a.m. call from her.
Oh gosh.
And her mother wrote a book called Wake Me Up at 10. Love, Terry, because that was the last note that she had written. I haven't read it yet, but it's you can get it at www.balboapress.com. Oh, it's just so sad.
That's heartbreaking.
So now we're moving on. So that was March 18th. March 20th, so 2 days later, Linda Grover, a 19-year-old Florida State University student, was shopping at a mall in Tallahassee, Florida. And Tallahassee is where those Ted Bundy murders happened, where he broke into the Chi Omega sorority and beat.
I think it's Chi Omega.
Chi Omega. You're probably right. That town had already been really traumatized by the killings. But Linda, this is Linda Grover, she had been 13 when that happened. And now she was 19, and that was so in the past. So she gets approached at the mall by this man with a camera around his neck who's like, "You are exactly what I need for this model shoot." And she's gorgeous, so beautiful. But she's like, "I am not interested in modeling. I'm a surfer. That's just not me." And he's like, "Well, actually, this is for a surfing photo shoot.
Oh my gosh.
So you would be perfect." And so he keeps trying and she keeps declining. And he would just kind of be hovering around wherever she was. And then she called her roommate. She said, "Look, I have roommates that are gorgeous. Maybe one of them would be interested." So he waited by her. She called her roommates. No one answered. So she's like, "I'm sorry. None of them are available." He then says, "Well, hey, I actually just took photos of you walking around the mall and I'll send them to you, but I need you to come out to my car to sign a release form."
Oh my gosh.
She again declined. She just said, "No, I don't need them. Thank you. No, thank you." She was trying really hard to get him to go away. So at the end of her shopping day, she goes out to her car And as she's unlocking her door, he sidles up next to her. And he again is like, hey, I just love to send you those photos if you'll just sign this release form. And he's holding a briefcase. And she goes, well, let me see. There's different reports because one of them is that she was suspicious of what was in the briefcase. And so she was like, show me what's in your briefcase. And another one was the release forms are in my briefcase. He distracts her, gets her to look inside the briefcase, clocks her in the head. She gets knocked out. And she wakes up later in the back seat of his car, driving out on a country road.
Oh my gosh.
So he stops, he chokes her until she almost loses consciousness. And then he gags her and he ties her up and he throws her in the trunk. And then they drove around for hours. She just said hours in the trunk, and that she was like hogtied with her arms behind her back. And she said that she was in so much pain from the position of her arm that she thought she would get permanent damage, like nerve damage to her arm. But he stopped several times, and he would open up the trunk and threaten her. He would plug her nose and mouth and like wait till she would nearly pass out. And then he would say, like, I'm just reminding you that I can kill you. He would do the same thing with choking her until she would basically pass out, and then he would stop. And then at one point he stopped and he said, I'm going into a store, but I have recording equipment in here. So I'll know if you try to escape, and I'll kill you if you try to escape. But just threatening her. But then like at one point he stopped. So they were like hours driving. At one point he stopped and like was real sweet and was like, are you cold? Do you need a blanket? Don't worry, we'll get there soon. We're going to get to our place soon. And so she said it was just really weird mixed messaging from him. He then pulls up to a hotel or a motel. I think it was a motel. And he tries to force her body into a suitcase, but she wouldn't fit. She said she actually tried to comply, but she wouldn't fit in. So he had her climb into a sleeping bag, and he zipped up the sleeping bag and threw her over his shoulder, carried her into the hotel room and threw her on the bed.
Oh my gosh.
And then what ensued is just so terrible. But he started by raping her several times. And then when he seemed to be tired of that, he electrocuted her. And when he stopped, like the credit card receipts later would show that he had stopped at like a hardware store and he had picked up a bunch of electrical equipment. He made this device that he would plug it into the wall and it would release currents, and he would put one attached to her toe, and then the other one he would use and just electrocute her for hours.
Oh no.
And he also would like electrocute her to a beat and make her dance to the beat. She said the electrocution went on for about 2 hours. Then he got tired of that. And then he got out super glue and wanted to glue her eyes shut.
No.
And so he made her hold still, and he super glued her eyes shut, and then took a hairdryer and blew the hairdryer on her eyes so that they sealed shut. But she had a tiny sliver of vision. And Wilder didn't know this, but she said that just out of one of her eyes, she could just see a little sliver of a vision. So then he had her stand up next to him, still hooked up to the electrocution torture device that he had made. She said that he just kind of got distracted with the TV, but would occasionally electrocute her. He told her he was going to shave her. And she said that she had been through so much, and that the thought of him doing this extra step was just too much, and that she just couldn't. She said that she would rather die than allow him to do this. So she just sat there going, I've got to figure this out. I've got to escape. I cannot do this anymore. Like, I can't put up with it. So he watched TV and just was kind of shocking her. And she, with that little sliver of vision, she was able to see where this pretty heavy device was that he had plugged in, and realized that she could yank it from the wall, throw it at him, and hopefully make it to the door and get out.
So she wasn't tied up at this point. She just was
Eyes super glued shut.
Eyes super glued shut, not tied up. Good question.
And he forced her to stand by him so he could just shock her when he wished.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So when she felt like he was really into the TV show, she just very quickly just made this decision. She yanked this thing from the wall, threw it at him, tried to hit him in the head, and ran for the door. He caught her by the hair and pulled her back. And then she said what ensued was like a 15-minute just knockdown, drag out fight where she just fought like tooth and nail with her life. And then she realized he was absolutely going to be, he's stronger. He's a man.
Yeah.
She's probably a small woman.
And he hit her in the head with a hairdryer. And so she said she realized she was bleeding from it. So she pretended to pass out because she thought, well, I've got to just, succumb and hopefully he'll think I'm passed out. So she pretended to pass out. And then he laid her on the bed while she's pretending to be to be knocked out. And then when he was kind of calm, she jumped up and gouged his eyes.
Yes.
got him in the eyes, ran into the bathroom, somehow loosened her gag. She was gagged, by the way, this whole time. Eyes super glued shut, gag in her mouth. She somehow got her gag off during the fight and locked herself in the bathroom and took out the gag and started screaming bloody murder and hitting the walls. And the walls were cement in the room, but in the bathroom, I don't think they were. So he first banged on the door and was threatening her, like, I'm going to kill you. Let me in. Shut up. I'm going to kill you. And she said that like she would screamed until she was hoarse and then took a break for a minute and she could hear him scuttling around the room. She could hear scuffling noises. And then she just kept screaming and screaming and screaming until she couldn't like anymore.
Yeah.
And then she just heard silence. So she waited about 30 minutes listening just as intently as possible to see if she could hear any sign that he was still out there. And then she said that this was the most terrifying moment. She said second most terrifying moment of the night. She said opening that door was the hardest thing she's ever had to do because she just was certain he was there waiting and would pounce on her. Instead, she comes out to a completely empty room. He had taken everything, her clothes, her ID, her money, her purse. He had taken all of his stuff. The only thing he left behind was a business card that had not his name, although I think he had told her his name was Chris. The business card said David Ivory.
Oh my gosh.
That's the only thing left behind. So she wraps herself in a sheet and, this is like the middle of the night, like probably 2, 3 in the morning or something at this point, maybe 4 in the morning. She wraps herself in a sheet and goes out and she just starts screaming for help. And there's a trucker sitting in his truck. She said he just sat in his truck, looked at her, looked the other way, didn't get out and help her. She was like, the trucker just probably thought it was a domestic situation and didn't want to get involved. But then she ran because they were at the very end of the hotel, like around the other side from the office. So she ran banging on doors, screaming for help. No one helped her.
Oh my
The
gosh.
family that owned the hotel would not let her in. She banged on the door and she said, please, like, let me in because it's like the middle of the night. And they told her to go down the street and use the payphone. And she didn't have clothes on or any money. So finally, banging on the door, she got the night clerk to let her in, and then she called the police. And she found out that she had been taken to Bainbridge, Georgia. She had been kidnapped in Tallahassee, Florida, and then taken across state lines into Bainbridge, Georgia.
Oh my gosh.
The sheriff came, took her to the hospital, and he gathered up a lineup. And by this time, Christopher Wilder's name was starting to be put out on bolos, which are...
Was she able to get her eyes open? Like
at the hospital, I'm assuming they were able to.
so like all of this banging on doors, she's
just that slit of vision. I mean, it was just awful. And she's just
so
this
young.
21-year-old college student. Was she 21? Was she 19?
19, right?
19-year-old college student. So she survives. And she ends up being like real key into getting Christopher Wilder because up to this point, they actually did not have proof that Christopher Wilder was kidnapping these women. They just had a lot of evidence. But now she was able to identify him in the lineup.
And tell everybody what he had been doing to these poor girls.
Yes. And like was able to give the modus operandi, the MO.
Do you think that he escalated with her beyond what he had done with other people? Or do you think he had done this before, the electrocution and the super glue and everything?
I mean, there's no way of knowing because so many bodies weren't found. There were not signs that I know of on the bodies that were found of super glue.
Or of electrocution?
But there were signs of asphyxiation.
And like other torture.
Yeah. Linda finds out she had been taken across state lines. She was now in Bainbridge, Georgia. What does that mean? It means it's a federal crime.
Yes.
So who was called?
The FBI.
The FBI.
And a federal warrant was issued for Christopher Wilder's arrest.
Finally.
So now they're starting to put things out kind of nationwide and they're trying to figure out sort of where he's going. But it will be harder to determine than they thought. So Linda Grover was put in witness protection because they were worried that he would come back and try to find her and kill her because she's a surviving eyewitness.
Mm-hmm.
So she had guards with her 24/7. She said that she had German shepherds that accompanied her everywhere, even to the bathroom.
Oh, yay.
Now around this time, so that was the 19th that Linda was kidnapped. And then on the 21st of March, on the 21st, a body was found by a lineman up a power pole. And he could see a body floating in the water. Her hands were tied behind her back, body of a young woman. She had been beaten. She had not been sexually assaulted. But her wrists and hands were tied, wrists and feet were tied with white rope. And she was eventually identified as Terry Ferguson, the girl who had gone missing on March 18th was when Terry Ferguson went missing. And so she was found on the 21st. Linda went missing on the 20th. So one day after Linda went missing, actually the day she escaped because she was overnight.
Like, so he's
Was
like
the day-
in berserker mode.
Oh, he's in berserker mode. It's like, and it just keeps getting more and more. Nothing can satisfy it. So, but now that the FBI is involved, they're able to get his therapist to release his records. They get this like this huge team and they start investigating. They had not been able to search his home. The police had not been able to because they didn't have a search warrant. I think the private detective had gone in, but not as a representative of the police.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, there's this guy. Well, okay, I don't want to get ahead of myself. They think that Teresa, the one that was found by the lineman, they think that her body, based on where they found the body and Wilder's movements with where his car had been towed, that her body was in the trunk when it had been towed. He did, because the tow truck driver didn't look in the trunk.
Oh yeah, it's not like he's gonna be like, hey, pop your trunk.
Right. So the FBI called Kimbrell, and Kimbrell told them everything about the credit cards he loaned him, about how Christopher asked him for that alibi, about how Christopher said everything in Australia was a misunderstanding, and that he just kind of went along with it. And he's real sorry. So meanwhile, local detective Tom Neighbors, and I had talked about him earlier because he's the one whose wife was the embroiderer that did Christopher Wilder's embroidery on his racing jackets. Tom Neighbors is at his local cop meeting where they're getting a bolo. They're getting the be on the lookout for the bolo on Wilder. And he recognizes Wilder's name. And he was like, oh shit, I know this man. So he leaves the meeting and he goes and he calls the FBI. And he's like, I know this man. I have information on him. I've socialized with him. I've had lunch with him. He goes to my house. And the FBI was like, well, you're with us now. So come here to us. And Tom calls his wife. Oh, yeah. And the FBI also said, well, if you know him, can you get his middle name? We don't have his middle name. So he's like, yeah, my wife has it because she has all the paperwork on him. So he calls his wife and he's like, what is Chris's middle name? What is
That widow name in the middle.
What is Christopher Wilder's middle name? And this was the funny part. Well, it's not funny. None of this is funny. But the audiobook I listened to is read by an Australian. So he goes, do you have his middle name? And she goes, it starts with a B. All he wrote was B. And then Tom Neighbors goes, burn it. And I was like, burn it? Why? What is he on? And then I realized it's Bernard or Bernard, but with the Australian accent, it sounds like burn it. Burn it. So anyway, Christopher Bernard Wilder, he also was able to get the name of all the teammates that Chris raced with. And so they were able to contact all of those people. And Tom ended up being a real key asset to the FBI's team. But he told his wife, I can't tell you what's going on, but if Chris shows up at your door, he's like, first of all, go get the gun out of the safe. If Chris shows up at the door, I want you to shoot him. And she's like, what? No, he's so nice. I can't. But, she's like, just trust me. So they are able to get the search warrant. They go, they search the house, and they find a hidden room in his house. In the room was basically like an S&M setup, like chains, whips, and also names of models and photographs. And so they were able to contact some of these models, and all of them said, well, yeah, we were hired to do photo shoots, but he actually didn't do anything to us. We were just like, he would chain us up and take photos, but no assault happened. Like every model they talked to said no assault. They scoured his house for traces of Rosario and Beth and found nothing, not a trace, not a photograph. They were able to trace Larry Kimbrell's credit cards, which Wilder was using, but these were, the old days when it was like those machines or you wrote it down. So they were always 2 to 3 days behind. And Tom Neighbors
and you don't want to shut off those credit cards because you want the trail.
Yeah, they want the trail. Tom Neighbors, the detective, began to connect Wilder to that unsolved kidnapping and sexual assault of the 9 and 12-year-old sisters that he had been working on.
Geez.
And what he realized is that the sisters had done a sketch, had given like a police rendering, and he realized that the police rendering could be Wilder if Wilder was wearing a toupee. And so then he went and he showed a lineup of photos to those girls, and both sisters separately immediately identified Wilder.
Oh my gosh. And you don't want to like think that a monster can be living among you,
Yeah, that
you
he's having
know?
lunch at your table, that
Yeah.
you come home and this guy's having lunch with your wife.
Sitting with your wife, yeah.
And he's so friendly to you. And Tom said later, he said that he still thinks about that case because he had been a detective for years and had dealt with like the worst of the worst. And he said that he had to remind himself how good these criminals were because he got no red flags, no gut feeling, nothing about Wilder every time he'd interacted with him.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere that like psychopaths and sociopaths can like put out the energy that they want you to receive from them. So like I'm a friendly guy or I'm a monster, I'm about to turn on you, you know.
They're
Like,
so good at mirroring other people.
yeah.
So now Wilder is moving on. So he's left Georgia and he heads to Beaumont, Texas. So 2 days after Linda Grover's escape in Georgia, Terry Walden, a nursing student in Beaumont, Texas, 23 years old, dropped her 4-year-old daughter off at daycare around 7:30 in the morning. She told her husband she was going to go study and then go to the mall and shop and that she'd be home around 1:30 in the afternoon. She was really beautiful. I mean, if you look her up, she's so gorgeous and just so sweet. And she often got comments from people about how pretty she was and how she could be a model. So none of that was abnormal. The day before, she had been approached by a man who was a modeling agent in the parking lot of her nursing school. So she thought that was really weird and she just kind of laughed about it. But he told her she could be a model and she went home and told her husband and just kind of laughed it off. Like, this guy, can you believe it? Told me I could be a model and said he was an agent. And the husband didn't think anything of it at the time. But at 5:30, the daycare called the husband and told her that Terry had not picked up the kids. So he called the police. And the police immediately contacted the FBI because they had gotten the bolo on Christopher Wilder and they thought, well, this is suspect. And even though we're in Texas, we're, in a different state, this is suspect. So they called the FBI and the FBI started searching.
Oh my gosh.
A teenage girl had been driving out in the country and in this part of Texas, rice is grown. So there's rice fields. And she had seen a car matching the description of the Chrysler New Yorker outside of Beaumont in the rice fields. And she said that there was 2 people in the car, a bearded male was driving, and that she couldn't really see the female passenger because she was leaning on the window and the girl assumed she was asleep.
No.
So couldn't really see her face because like her against the window with her hair covering her face. She later saw the same car drive back by and there was no woman in the car. 3 days later, Terry Walden's body was found floating face down in a canal in those rice fields. She was bound with rope and duct tape and she had been stabbed 3 times through the chest.
Oh,
She was stabbed so viciously that the blade went all the way through her body.
goodness.
There was no sign of rape, but she had been strangled before she was stabbed. Her bra was missing, and they found tire tracks that matched a Chrysler New Yorker. And then later, they found the New Yorker. And in the trunk of the New Yorker, there were traces of fibers that were found on Terry Ferguson and Linda Grover. And Terry Walden's 1981 burnt orange Cougar was missing. They could not find Terry Walden's car.
Oh my gosh.
Another woman in Beaumont reported that she had been approached by a man with a model agent card, and the name was Lynn Ivory. I think I said David Ivory earlier, but I think it's Lynn Ivory. Might have been both. He might have done 2 cards.
Okay.
But she told him she was in a hurry. She was like, I'm sorry, I just don't have time. I'm in a hurry. So she declined. So the next day, on March 24th, at the Dallas Grand Prix, happened to be that day in Dallas, Texas, Wilder approached a woman with a model offer and she was actually really excited. They like had dinner or grabbed a drink or something together and she gave him her number and he never called her. But she also identified Wilder in a photo lineup. And at this point, he was dressed like a Texan. He was blending in. He had boots, he had the jeans, and he was speaking with absolutely no trace of an Australian accent.
I hate this guy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and other women had also reported at the Grand Prix that they had been approached with model offers. So meanwhile, back in Florida, the Kenyans, Elizabeth's parents and Rosario's parents, they have no idea where their daughters are, but they're following this closely because they're hoping, like the Kenyans thought maybe Chris had Beth with him or that he had her somewhere. So they were like watching with bated breath, to hope like for when he gets caught so they can find out. where Beth
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
They were hoping that the girls were held somewhere. Searches of his business and of his home produced no clues, but the police wondered, because Wilder had a boat, if he would have taken them out into the ocean or out into the Everglades, like you said, Em, and dumped their bodies. And that if that's the case, there's just the likelihood of them being found is really low. And they also noticed that bodies are turning up quicker and quicker, shorter span between victims. So that was March 23rd that he was at the Dallas Grand Prix. No traceable victims that we know of at that event, but he was there talking to women, doing his model spiel. Then on March 25th, suddenly Christopher Wilder is traced to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. A 21-year-old Suzanne Logan. She was really beautiful.
She's just bodies in his wake.
Oh, it's
I
awful.
hate this guy.
She had shoulder length brown hair. She was 21 years old, and her dream was to be a model. She dropped her husband off at work. I think she had been married for 9 months, so she was a newlywed. She dropped her husband off at work and then went to the mall. And she was supposed to pick her husband up a few hours later from work, and she never did. So her husband reported her to the police and said, "My wife didn't pick me up. She's missing." And the police did nothing. It's so weird because they absolutely did something in the case of Terry Walden, immediately called the FBI, but the police, like, still to this day defend their decision to not do anything, because they said, well, we knew that they had a tumultuous marriage, so we thought she probably left. She was 21. She's an adult. To pry into her affairs would have been an invasion of the Privacy Act. Like, these were all of their excuses. They did nothing.
Oh, jeez.
They said that she probably just wanted to leave the marriage and she ran away, and that without evidence of foul play, they couldn't investigate. However, credit cards show that Wilder spent that night at an inn on I-35 in Newton, Kansas, which is 200 miles north of Oklahoma City. And they found evidence that Suzanne in that hotel. So he grabbed her, took her 200 miles north,
and just tortured her.
and he requested a room at the end. Now, the clerk that checked out the room
Just
for
like
Wilder,
he did with
the survivor, with Linda. Yeah.
Linda.
He requested a room at the very end of the hotel. He asked to be away from other people. The clerk didn't see him with anybody, but, well, I'll tell you. So the next day, a body was found, it's just the worst, in a reservoir in Junction City, Kansas, which is 90 miles north of Newton, Kansas, and 300
Which is where the hotel was, or the motel was.
Yes. Okay. So he grabbed Suzanne in Oklahoma City, drove her about 200 miles, stayed in a hotel, and then her body was found 90 miles further, so about 300 miles from where she was taken. Her body was found on March 26th, so the day after, in a reservoir. She had been raped, beaten, bitten, battered in the face, which was one of his MOs, and she had superficial puncture wounds in her back. So they think that that was a form of torture, just to give very small wounds, but a fatal stab wound in the chest that again went nearly clear through. When they found her body, they supposed she had been dead for about an hour.
Whoa.
Her hair had been cut off and her pubic hair had been shaved. And then later, back in that hotel room in Newton, the maid found a garbage can full of Suzanne Logan's hair. So he had absolutely had her in that hotel room.
Oh, geez.
It did take 10 days to identify the body. And around this time, credit cards showed that Wilder had purchased a gun. So somewhere in those states, like where it's legal and not hard to purchase a gun, he got one. And that's added to his kill kit. So Christopher Wilder keeps heading north. And on March 29th, 1984, 18-year-old Cheryl Bonaventura, her last name means like good luck or happy adventures or good adventure or something like that. She was a gorgeous blonde girl, fresh high school grad who wanted to be a model. And she was headed to meet her best friend, Crystal, in Aspen, Colorado for a ski weekend. But she told her mom that before she headed up to Aspen to meet Crystal, that she was going to stop by the mall. She left dressed in jeans, cowgirl boots. She was like totally dressed like a cowgirl, and she really liked to create a look. People reported that at the mall in Grand Junction that day, that there was a model scout who was saying he needed a cowgirl type for a photo shoot that was happening that day. So several women had been approached
Oh my gosh.
by him. One woman Wilder approached
said, gave his spiel. And then he said, have you heard of JF Images in Denver? And she said, oh yeah, my husband's a radio DJ and he actually does dealings with them all the time. So let me see your card. He showed her the card, but would not hand it to her.
Oh, that's a move of his.
Yeah. And she was like, yeah, I totally know that place. So they think later that because she knew so much about it, that he was worried she would be onto him. So he actually excused himself from her. And he said, well, listen, wait here. I'm going to go get a local phone number for the modeling agency so that you can call. And she didn't wait. She just said she got a creepy feeling about him. So she took off and then later saw him when she was leaving a store, but he didn't see her. So she went and took another exit so she could avoid him because she just had a bad feeling.
Ugh. So he's in Colorado now?
Yeah. And Cheryl Bonaventura. So this woman I just told you about was not Cheryl.
Okay.
She's avoided Christopher and we don't know her name. But Cheryl was seen by a friend who was biking through the mall parking lot with her boyfriend. And she saw Cheryl sitting in her car, but a man was talking to her through the car window. So the friend did not stop because she didn't want to bother Cheryl.
Oh, gosh.
Meanwhile, Cheryl never showed up to meet her friend Crystal for their trip to Aspen. Crystal called Cheryl's parents and her father came and found Cheryl's car parked in the parking lot, but it was not where the friend had seen her because she was parked in a parking lane talking to this man when the friend had driven by on the bike. The father found her car parked like in the parking lot by the Mervins, which was not the same place. The car was locked, but the sunroof was open. And he said that his daughter was so particular about cars, she never would have left the sunroof open.
Jeez.
This is what's nuts, is later that day, Cheryl was seen about 100 miles south in the tiny town of Silverton, Colorado, at a diner where she actually knew the owner because her grandfather had worked there. She chatted with the owner of the diner, and she said that she was really excited because she was on her way to a modeling job in Las Vegas. And the owner said that the man that she was with just sat behind her smiling and that Cheryl was just bubbling with excitement. And the man just nodded and smiled behind her as she told the owner, this man she knew. Like, I've got a modeling job. I'm going to Vegas. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
Oh my gosh.
They were then seen together the next day at the Four Corners Monument. They checked into a hotel as Mr. and Mrs. Kimball on March 30th. And then the next morning, the last time Cheryl was seen, someone saw them leaving the hotel right after dawn that next morning. And they said that they paid attention because of the age difference, but that he whisked her into his car. Then there were no more sightings of her. Cheryl's family and friends searched for her. And all of these sightings, of course, were reported after the fact, like when she had, was missing. But her family and friends searched for her. And then when they got the reportings of the sightings, they went to all these places trying to find out where she was. And they realized from the reports that she probably went willingly. But they were saying, well, even if she went willingly, she might not know she's in danger. She is a really naive, hopeful girl. And we don't know who this man is that she's with. And her friend, Crystal, the one that she had met, Crystal said that Cheryl fantasized about being discovered, that both she and Cheryl fantasized about being discovered, and would always talk about how amazing it would be if you were just approached and like, you have what it takes. And, that they would say, we were found, we were Vogue material. And Crystal said, if someone approached me, I would have gone. And I know Cheryl would have too. And Cheryl would have known that I would have forgiven her for standing me up to take this opportunity to be a famous model. So that day was March 29th. So over a month later, on May 3rd, a family picnicking north of McNab, Utah, found Cheryl's body. She had been shot one time and had multiple stab wounds. So Wilder checked in to a hotel in Vegas on April 1st.
Okay, so back to this last victim that was just found. Was there any evidence that she had been sexually assaulted also? Or was it just the torture again?
It did not say.
I mean, how many days she was with him?
Yeah, it didn't say. And I don't know at one point, because there were some witnesses that said, knowing afterwards what happened, that maybe her excited, bubbly behavior was an act and that she was actually being threatened by him. Like, if he's standing behind her saying, no, you go in and you act normal. You tell this person as I have a gun, because he does this later.
Right.
It's possible that she was under duress and just was a good actress, but it's also possible that she just went along with the ruse.
Maybe he was like, I'll shoot up the place. I don't care.
And he had a gun, like at this point, So, okay. And then on March, I feel like I deleted a paragraph because there's something
I remember what it is though, so I'll just tell you. On March 31st, he checked into a hotel. And I think this was in Vegas. I might be wrong, but he did not have a woman with him this time. Instead, when they cleaned, the maid found tan bra, tan underwear, a black slip, a dildo, and a blow-up doll. That was what he left behind in the room, but no traces of a human girl. It's too bad he didn't just stick with that.
Right.
So, but then on April 1st in Las Vegas, Nevada, 17 Magazine was sponsoring a beauty contest in a local mall, like to scout for models. And it seems like Wilder had told Cheryl Bonaventura about a modeling gig in Vegas. And so I wonder if he had said, you've got to come to this beauty contest. It seems like he had an aim to get to Vegas by the 1st. He knew about this event. So he,
I wonder if he did but I'm leaving now.
Yeah, I got to go now. I'm for sure he did. Because with that cowgirl thing, like he had told people, but the shoot is today. We have to go now. I need someone today, right now. And I honestly wonder if he picked her out because he would pick out a girl and then spend kind of maybe follow them around. Like Linda wondered because he knew where her car was parked, if he had followed her before and had seen her earlier.
Oh, creepy.
So that he knew where her car was because he had followed her around the mall. There was no way he knew where she had parked, and he happened to be parked right next to her. It's all very strange. So April 1st, 17 Magazine is sponsoring the beauty contest at the mall. 17-year-old Michelle Korfman, an aspiring model who was compared to Cindy Crawford, totally gorgeous. And all of these women had been relatively short and petite. Michelle, though, was like 5'7". She was taller, and she probably actually, of all of these women, could have made it as a model in the fashion industry. Beautiful. She drove her car, parked at the mall, went in, and a lot of these girls that were here for this were there with chaperones, with their mothers. And several girls and their mothers reported that this man was walking around with a camera, claiming to be a modeling agent, but asking them to come with him to his studio to take shots. Mothers, of course, were like, no, we're not going. And all the other girls declined too. One mother was taking photos of her daughter as she walked the catwalk and actually caught several shots of Christopher Wilder sitting, watching the girls walk.
Oh, creepy.
And she had no idea at the time that she was capturing a serial killer. But those ended up being used in evidence. All of her photos ended up being used in evidence. And you can Google Christopher Wilder model contest and you'll see the picture. And he's just sitting back, and you see these legs of girls and he's just sitting back looking at these girls walking. It's just so gross. So he never, the people that declined going to the studio said that he didn't seem upset. He just was really cool, calm and collected. Oh, okay, that's fine. But they all described him as the same. He was not super tall. He had a short, clean cut beard and really significant blue eyes, bright, piercing blue eyes. Michelle Korfman was last seen engaged in conversation with Wilder, excitedly smiling and nodding, and they walked slowly toward the exit together. And that's the last time Michelle Korfman was seen. She never came home. Her car was found behind Caesar's Palace, so her car had been moved because she had parked it in the mall. And we don't know how long Wilder kept Michelle with him. None of her family thinks that she would have actually gotten into his car by choice. They think that he probably was doing the thing come out to my car, follow me. You can follow me in your car.
And then blitz attack.
Yeah.
Shove him in the car.
Yeah. But by this time, by April 4th, so 4 days later, she went missing on April 1st. 4 days later, he was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, and flyers were being distributed everywhere. They were distributing them to malls, to modeling agencies, to colleges, and to racetracks, any place that did car racing, because he was a racer. And they started airing video footage of him from his dating service, so people could see how he talked and his mannerisms. And that was being played on the nightly news. And honestly, I just don't know how he didn't get caught with all of this. Gosh. Michelle's body, this is just the saddest. Michelle's body was found on May 11th, so more than a month later. She was found off of a less traveled road that goes from Vegas to Los Angeles through the Los Angeles National Forest. She had shallow stab wounds.
So probably the torture thing.
But the cause of her death was asphyxiation from inhaling debris, and they surmised she had been killed by him pressing her face into the sand until she died.
No.
There was no effort to hide the body. Such a rural place that's like a month went by and it took a month and a family found the body.
Oh,
And her body wasn't identified until June because it had been over a month,
yeah.
Oh, that poor girl.
So, as you have heard, Christopher was making his way to California. And in Torrance, California, which I think is just south of Los Angeles, 16-year-old Tina Marie Risico skipped school to apply for a job on April 4th, 1984. Tina grew up a bit rough. She was so cute. Just such a pretty girl. She grew up rough though. Her mother was a 16-year-old mom when she had Tina Marie, and Tina didn't have any kind of relationship with her father at all. I don't even know if she knew who her dad was at this time, but her household was chaotic. Her mom was into biker, like part of like a biker gang. So Tina was subject to drug use, partying, and sexual abuse as a child
Oh,
that
no.
her mom probably wasn't even aware of. But so Tina like kind of developed these a skill set that comes from growing up in chaos of really learning how to observe people and their behavior and learning how to give people what they wanted as quick as possible.
Right.
So
Just coping.
yeah, coping. But she was cute. Despite her rough childhood, she was living like a great life, like beaches, parties, good group of friends. She had a boyfriend that was creepily older than her, but he actually seemed like a decent guy other than she was 16 and he was like 23.
Mm-hmm.
So she skipped school. Oh, and I think that she was actually living with her grandparents at this point, like because her grandparents were a more stable environment than her mom, but she still really loved her mom and had like a good relationship with her. Are you looking her up?
Mm-hmm.
Risico, Ricico. She's cute. She's just got this cute round face and a dimple, super blonde, just like light, like she actually kind of looks like Kelsey Woodfield to me.
Oh.
Like just that beautiful face with like the dimple smile, like so cute. So she goes to the mall to apply for a job at Hickory Farms. And while she walks into Hickory Farms, she sees a man and she kind of nods and smiles at him. And she kind of assumes he works there. So she goes in, she does her job application, and she leaves the store. He follows her out of the store and he was like, "Hey, excuse me, I wanted to talk to you about your application." So he saw her applying for a job, says that. He also has a camera around his neck. And she's like, "Yeah, yeah." And he's like, "You'd be great. But also, I actually wonder if you would like to do this other job. We need a model. And I actually work for a modeling agency down the road. And I think that he used the name Barbizon again or some other modeling agency where there was absolutely an agency that had a physical building down the road from the mall.
Oh, God.
Basically, they started to walk back towards Hickory Farms. He was like, "Come with me." But before they got to the door, he stopped her and was like, "Actually, let's just go to the agency and register you. I'll have to call your mother, though, when we get there." So she agrees. And she later would say, so now you know she's a survivor. She later would say that every instinct in her body said, "Don't go with this man." But she just was like, "Why would I not? He's offering money." He also offered her $100. That's more money than she would make like in a week working, working
month.
every day after school at Hickory Farms. So he's like, come with me. We'll go to the modeling agency. We'll call your mother. So she got in his car and she said there was a funny smell in his car. And there's really not much more about that, but she said she just assumed it was old food or something. But I am wondering if he kept a decomposing body in his trunk and the smell was seeping in. That's what I'm wondering. So they drove to the modeling agency and then he drove by. And so she was like, "Oh, I thought we were going to go there." And he's like, "You know what? Before we go there, we need to get some shots for your portfolio. So let's go to the beach. We'll get some shots of you on the beach." They go there. He asks her to take off her shoes, take off her bra, and he takes a bunch of photos of her, put on a white jacket, and she just complies, does what he wants. And then he's like, "These are great, but we need to get some photos of you with the mountains in the background. And then I think your portfolio will be complete." Gets in the car with him again. Then they drive away from the public place, drive up to the mountains. And she says they walk like into the woods a ways and he starts doing photos. And he was like, "Turn around. Let's get some photos of you with your arms up, from behind." And then she went to turn back to him to make sure she was posing right. And he was holding a gun on her. And she said the weird thing is that she just didn't understand. Like mostly she was just like, what does a gun have to do with a modeling shoot? that it was like it did not compute that she was being held up for a moment. She just was like, what is happening? Why does he have a gun? This is a modeling shoot. And then she saw his demeanor change, and she suddenly realized, I'm alone with this man and he is going to hurt me. And then she said it took less than a second where she was like, can I escape? No. If I'm going to survive this, I need to do exactly what he says. I just need to be compliant. And it's almost like all of those experiences from her childhood where she had been abused in her own home, but she had figured out how to get it over with quickly, just clicked into place, and she just became like the perfect Wilder victim.
Oh,
And this is
gosh.
actually probably what helped her survive. So he told her, he blindfolded her and tied her hands and then made her strip and then took a bunch of photos of her. And he said, if you want to survive, you have to do exactly what I tell you. You have to do exactly what I say when I say it. I also like my girls to be aggressive with me sexually. So that has to happen too. And you need to just don't talk back and, don't and just do what I want. And so she was like, absolutely, whatever you need. He brings her into the car and then he sexually assaults her for the first time. And just like the girl in Australia that he had drugged, the one with the pizza where he drugged her on the pizza.
Yeah.
And he made her straddle him in the car. He did the same thing with Tina Marie. And if you watch 9 Days of Terror on Hulu, takes you through Tina Marie's 9 days. She had told the FBI about this initially and then hadn't spoken about it for like 40 years. She did not remember. She was just like, I forgot that's actually when he first sexually assaulted me, was right there in the car in that field. Like she did not remember. She had blocked so much of it out of her mind. So he then gets her in the car. She's tied up. She's blindfolded, but she's sitting in the passenger seat. And she said that they first drove to a McDonald's and she just wonders, he ran into the McDonald's and just said, wait here. And she was scared and he had a gun and she just waited. And she wondered if anyone saw her in that parking lot, a McDonald's parking lot, a blindfolded, bound girl. But she doesn't know if anyone saw her. But then he drove her south, like to the border of Mexico.
Jeez.
He drove her to a hotel by the Mexican border. And that night he raped her repeatedly. And then he took a lamp and he split open the wires and he did the same thing he did with Linda Grover. But instead of having his device, he just used a lamp, split the wires and electrocuted her for hours, like all over her body. She just said it was so painful, but that he would hold it on her for 10 seconds. But if she screamed or cried out, he would do it for 30 seconds. So she learned really quickly just to hold everything inside. And also he wanted her to keep her arms pinned down by her sides. And if her arms involuntarily flailed, he would electrocute her again. Like just awful, awful, awful torture. She is a 16-year-old little baby. I mean, I just can't, what she went through.
No.
And for 9 days.
9 days.
So the next morning they got up and drove and he taped her eyes with duct tape and then put sunglasses over her eyes and had her drive next to him with her hands tied in her lap, but she had to keep her head turned towards him the entire time.
Oh my gosh.
And she said later, I mean, she couldn't see right now, but she always had his gun later when she was allowed to not have the eyes duct taped, that he always had one hand on the gun. So then they drove to a new hotel. They were going back north again and same thing happened. Although before he took her to this hotel, he drove her to a lake and she kind of thought, well, this is it. This is where he's going to kill me. But instead he pulled out scissors and he chopped her hair off. So she had waist length, long blonde hair. He chopped it all off to like chin length.
So he just likes to take these beautiful people and just do whatever he wants and like take things from them, like their hair and.
Yes. And so she wasn't sure, like, was he trying to disguise her? And it occurred to her that when he cut her hair, that he was intending on keeping her rather than killing her. So she kind of thought, if I can keep this, then eventually I might be able to escape. But I mean, she's 16 and she's terrified and she's already a survivor. So immediately she's just going into compliance mode.
Yeah.
Which is what victims of abuse often do. That's why, like, if you're a victim of abuse as a child, you can easily get caught in another abusive relationship because your survival instincts take you into compliance.
Mm-hmm.
So he told her that the reason he was in California is that he was picking up a cocaine shipment from Mexico and that his contact was into sex slavery and that he really didn't want to give Tina up into sex slavery, but he would have to if she didn't obey him. So he's threatening her with a gun, threatening her with killing her, told her he had killed other people before and that he wouldn't hesitate to kill her, and threatening to put her in sex slavery where she would be subjected to worse torture. He was just gentle torture. So she was lucky, because if she got put in Mexico, she'd be burned with cigarettes. Like, he would describe to her what would happen to her if she was put into the trafficking in Mexico.
I hate this guy. Is just
He's
evil.
He is the worst. So another night, same thing, rape, electrocution, biting. That night on the news, he saw himself on the news and they were describing him as a bearded man. And so Tina said he went into the bathroom, shaved himself completely, changed his look, cut his hair, shaved his beard. So now he's clean shaven and has shorter hair than before. So if you watch the documentary on Hulu, it gives you a lot more detail of what like happened each day. But basically it was just 4 days and nights of the same, of just torture and compliance. And he would reward her if he thought she was good and then punish her if he thought she was not obedient or not satisfying his sexual needs. Ugh. So he said after 4 days that he wanted her to help him get another girl. So they drive to a mall in Merrillville, Indiana. So they had driven all the way from California, clear across, and they're now in Indiana. They pull into a mall and he's like, we're going to go into the mall and you're going to just do what I tell you. She watched him load his gun with bullets and check it. And he like made a show of having his gun ready to go. And he's like, if you don't do what I say, I will shoot you in the mall. So she's terrified. He goes in, he picks who he wants. And he's like, I want you to go up to this girl and tell her that she could be a model, that she's been scouted, and then bring her back out to my car where I'll be waiting. And she was like, I don't know what to say to her. And he gave her a script and threatened her again. So coaches her and she goes and she approaches Chris's target. And I want to remind you, she is a 16-year-old girl, right?
Who is being threatened with a gun. Mm-hmm. She's been tortured for days.
Yes.
How many days have they been together at this point?
I think this is on the 5th day. She had 4 nights with him, I believe. So Dawnette Sue Wilt, 16 years old, was at the mall in Merrittville, Indiana to apply for a job at a clothing store. She goes into the store, she fills out the application, and then she leaves the store. Then she's approached by a pretty chin-length blonde girl who happens to be Tina Marie. And Tina says, the boss wants to see you. So Dawnette assumes she's talking about the boss back at the store. I think I said Chris was waiting in the car. He was not waiting back at the car.
Oh.
So Tina takes Dawnette and they start walking back towards the store. But right before the entrance of the store, Christopher Wilder intercepts them. And he goes, I just saw your application. I wanted to talk to you about it. So immediately Dawnette thinks this is the guy that runs the clothing store. And he says, actually, I think we would like you to work at the store, but we would also like you to model for our store. It's a clothing store. Same thing he did with Tina, but instead he involved Tina this time.
Oh my gosh.
So it adds another level of trust because there's another girl there. And he's like, you just got to come out to my car, sign a release form, and I'll take a quick photo of you. And then I need your mom to sign this form as well. So Dawnette was like, oh, this is amazing. I'm getting a job and becoming a model all at once. So she follows them out to the car and he doesn't even do any pretense. He pulls out a gun and he says, get in, baby. This is real.
Oh.
So they get in the car, they drive off. Tina is driving. I believe Chris is in the back seat with Dawnette where he, has her tied up. And I believe as they drive, he tortures her. Because Tina will later say that anytime she would turn around while he was in the back seat with a victim, that he would say, turn around or you'll end up like those Florida girls. And that is the only reference he ever made to Beth Kenyon and Rosario or the other women in Florida. Oh, he never told her where bodies were or anything. So they drove to a remote area. He tied Dawnette up. He taped her mouth closed and he started brainwashing her by saying, who do you belong to? And making her reply, you, sir, to him over and over and over again.
Gross.
They drove back to the mall. They found Dawnette's car. And then he had Tina get in Dawnette's car and told Tina, remember, I'm a race car driver. If you try to escape, it will not be hard for me to catch you. So you have to follow me. I will catch you. I will shoot you. You follow me. And Tina believed him because on the nightly reports, they had reported he was a race car driver. She had no doubt that he could catch her and kill her. So she followed him in Dawnette's car. They ditched Dawnette's car out in the country. Meanwhile, Donnette told Christopher she was pregnant, hoping it would like save her from sexual assault, but it did not. It had worked earlier on another victim, if you remember, that teenage girl that was the daughter of people he was doing work for.
That's right.
It didn't work on Donnette. In fact, he started calling her like my little mommy. You're my little mommy.
Ugh.
I'm gonna, like he would say, with what I'm doing to your baby will be born wrong.
Oh,
He just was the worst, like so awful. So they drive then from, this was in Indiana, they drive to Akron, Ohio, and they check into a motel. Chris requests a motel with 2 beds. And when they get into the motel, he tells Tina to go take a shower, but he makes her keep the door open. Tina can see that the lights in the hotel room are flashing off and on, and he realizes that Chris is electrocuting Donnette. And Tina just said she felt awful, felt horrible, but just didn't know what to do. It just really felt like she wishes that she could have not helped in kidnapping Donnette, but there was nothing she could do.
Yeah.
So Tina slept in one bed, and Christopher Wilder spent the night assaulting, raping, and electrocuting Donnette over and over. And Tina just said it wasn't a reprieve. Like you might think, well, at least she got a break. But she said it was just the worst ever because she had to sit there and just be witness to it. And she just said it was one of the worst nights.
Gosh.
The next day, they drive to Victor, New York. And they had another horrible night of the same thing. 2 beds, Christopher, putting all of his attention in Donnette. And then he told Donnette that he was taking her to New York, where again, he's the same thing he said to Tina, that he was going to sell her into sex slavery for cocaine, and that he would then go back to his life in Florida, with no problem. He also started telling Tina he would release her. Tina didn't believe him. On April 12th, there was a news program featuring Tina's parents, because Tina's mom had reported her missing, I think on April 5th, which was the day after she applied for the job and got kidnapped. But the police didn't take it seriously until April 10th because Tina's dad, who hadn't been a part of her life ever, showed up and said, well, I know she was unhappy at home, so it's possible she ran away.
What an asshole.
He's the worst. He did then get her a lawyer and like paid for a lawyer later, but still I'm like, don't pop up in your daughter's life and
at the most vulnerable
make
time.
it so the police don't search for her. He wasn't wrong. Like Tina did have a rough home life and had like moved in with her grandparents, but like he wasn't helping.
Your daughter is missing, you idiot.
And Tina's mom, and her mom's gorgeous, like just this beautiful woman, but a little rough looking, because motorcycle gang, but so pretty. And she said on the thing, like, if this man has my daughter, God help him if he ever crosses my path. And I believed her that she would somehow
she knows people.
Cause some serious harm. So when he saw that news report, he turned to Tina. And at this point, it appeared that Donnette's disappearance was not linked to Wilder yet, because they still thought that they were probably in the South, like in California, or that he had crossed the Mexico border.
Oh, gosh.
And I think maybe he drove to the Mexico border and paid for that hotel with a credit card, almost to mislead them, but then immediately turned around and headed to the Northeast.
Okay.
Right? Because now he's crossing into Akron, Ohio. Is that considered Northeast, or is that considered Midwest?
Ohio?
Midwest. Ohio's Midwest, isn't it?
Okay. So he has worked his way up to the Midwest, and Donnette's disappearance has not been connected with Wilder. But when Wilder saw Tina Marie's parents on the news, he turned to her in front of Donnette and said, that's it, kiddo, you're going home. And then he told her he was going to take her to New York, where he would trade Donnette into sex slavery and put Tina on a plane. So on April 12th, that's when he told the girls, Donnette, selling you into sex slavery, Tina, taking you to New York, putting you on a plane, you're going home. Tina doesn't know why it was her. She just assumes it's because she complied with everything. She never fought. She never screamed. She did everything he asked. So they leave the motel that morning, and he told Donnette, he was taking her to sell her into the sex trade, but she felt like she knew he was actually going to kill her. So they go to McDonald's for breakfast, and then he forced Donnette to swallow a bunch of sleeping pills. And then he drove up by the Finger Lakes, an area that Wilder was familiar with, and he had Tina drive at this point. They drove into a forest, and he had Tina park, and he took Donnette out of the car, and he walked away with Donnette. Tina waited for about 30 minutes.
Oh, gosh.
And then she said Wilder came back. He didn't have any blood on his clothing, but he was like kind of vibrating with energy. And she didn't want to ask what happened to Donnette because she was worried that it would trigger him to retaliate at her. She didn't want to get in trouble. he took over driving and they left. He basically, this was out in the country, he drove in a big square back to where he had taken Donette. And it took about 20 minutes. And he said, I just want to go check and make sure she's dead. So he leaves the car, leaves Tina again. He comes back and said, she's gone. We've got to go. So now let me tell you what happened to Donette. So Donette got out of the car with Christopher. She had taken sleeping pills and she was really groggy. So he took her into the woods and then he tried to suffocate her by plugging her nose and covering her mouth. And she bucked and fought so hard that it wasn't successful. She was blindfolded. So he had blindfolded her when he walked her up there.
Gosh.
She said all of a sudden she felt him punch her 3 times in the chest really hard and just thought, well, at least he's not trying to suffocate me. But then she felt warm, wet, dripping, and she realized she had been stabbed. So what she thought was 3 just punches to the chest was actually him stabbing her 3 times.
Oh my Lord.
So there's 2 stories about what happened next, and I'm actually not sure which one's correct. So one story said that she laid there and pretended to be dead while he walked away. And the other one said that she laid there, he started walking away, leaving her to die, and she shouted, I hate you, at him with like her last bit of breath, and that he turned around and said, shut up, bitch, and then walked away, leaving her for dead. As soon as he was gone, she said she waited about 2 minutes, and she had learned how to do a tourniquet because she had been a brownie. She had been a Girl Scout. So she took off her jeans and turned it into a tourniquet and tied it around her chest where the stab wounds were, as tight as she could. And she just said every part of her was like, just rest, relax and rest, and you can get up later. But she said there was something like a voice that just said, get up now or you will die. Get up and walk. And so she took every ounce of strength she had. She got up and she stumbled her way through the forest to the road right as a man named Charles Lawson was driving by in his truck. Charles had taken a wrong turn. He had been heading to a farm to do mechanic work and took a wrong turn. So it was completely by chance that he was on this remote road and happened to literally drive by as she stumbled out of the woods. Like she didn't even have to wait.
Wow.
He was driving by at the same time. And so he picks her up and she says, I want to call my mom. And he just said, I drove the fastest I've ever driven. I got that girl to a hospital.
Oh.
He's like, I didn't know what would happen. She kind of tried to explain it to him, but she was like losing consciousness because she had been stabbed 3 times. And Christopher, they said later that he had aimed for her heart, but he had missed it, but he had punctured her lung. And if she had laid down, her lungs would have filled. If she had stayed down, her lungs would have filled full of blood and died. But as we found out later, he would have come back and finished the job because it was a 20-minute window between when he stabbed her and when he came back to make sure she was dead and she had gotten herself up.
Wow.
It's just the craziest. Mm-hmm. But he drove her to a hospital called the Penn Yan Hospital. So Penn Yan, it was in upstate New York. They had been in the Midwest and then driven to the Northeast. And Penn Yan is small. It's like an unincorporated community. It's not big at all, but they had good hospital care. Mm-hmm. And they called the police and she told, the hospital staff that she had been kidnapped by a man named Chris, but she didn't know anything else. The sheriff had just received the bolo on Chris Wilder. And he said, this is the guy that they think is in California. They think he's down in the South or in Mexico, but they had luckily sent the bolo everywhere. He just had an instinct and he told Beth, we know this is the guy. He gathered up a really good photo lineup and had Beth, including Wilder, and he had Beth identify, and it was again immediate that Wilder was the man.
Wait,
that Beth
or Donette?
Donette.
Okay.
Sorry, I scrolled down and saw Beth's name. Beth is next.
Oh.
So I'm about to tell you about his last victim. Oh gosh, I don't want to cry.
Oh, Nettie.
It's so sad. It's just been like 2 weeks of
really hard research.
Just these girls and just feeling for their families. And
do we need to just pause for a moment?
No, I'm okay. I got it together. So April 12th. So this is the next day. Okay. Donette. They had left Donette. Christopher now knows Donette, though, is alive. Or actually, he's not completely sure. He, I guess, wondered if she had just stumbled into the woods and died somewhere, like had stumbled off and laid down and died. So he wasn't sure, but he kind of assumed. So on April 12th, Beth Dodge, 33 years old, single mom, divorced, had no idea that someone was following her as she pulled her sparkly gold Pontiac Firebird that she had bought for herself as kind of like a celebration when she was divorced. And she was like independent, had a good job, totally taking care of herself, and was really proud of it. And so bought herself this fancy car. She had no idea she was being followed when Christopher Wilder pulled up behind her in the mall, and Tina waited in the car. Wilder got behind Beth's car and he said, Tina, get in the driver's seat. So she immediately did what he said. And then she watched as Wilder pulled a gun on Beth as she got out of the Firebird, forced her into the back seat of her own car, and then drove off, and Tina followed. Tina said that there was a man not very far away working on a car that watched the whole thing and did nothing. And apparently this man didn't
Didn't
Well,
even like
who
go
knows?
and call the police.
I mean, who knows? Maybe he did, and maybe it just wasn't reported. But that was something that stuck out to Tina, is that someone watched Beth be kidnapped and
didn't even go like, hey.
I mean, and he was like, Tina said he was a young man, but like maybe he was scared, like this man has a gun. What are you supposed to do? But
Yeah.
so Wilder drove off. Tina followed him, and they drove to a remote area. He got Beth out of the car, walked her over to a mound of gravel, and then went behind it. And then Tina heard 2 gunshots. Wilder came back, and Tina followed him to a pub, and they moved all of their luggage from the back of the Cougar. They were still driving Terry Walden's Cougar into the Pontiac Firebird, which Chris, his vanity and his love of cars, like probably really got him in trouble because he chose a really flashy car.
Good. I love it when criminals
To-
like this make bad decisions.
Yeah. It was a flashy car. And it
So
was,
he chose her specifically to get the car. That's
Yeah.
it.
that's what Tina said. Her Beth.
Jeez.
And she was a mother. She had a little 4-year-old daughter. At the
Awful.
It's so awful. So they transfer everything into the Firebird and they take off. Someone, though, had seen Wilder in the woods by the gravel pit. We don't know who spotted him, but they called the sheriff immediately. So they found Beth's body like within a couple of hours. They
Oh
found her
my
right
gosh.
away, and she had been shot in the heart. And they linked it immediately with Wilder. So now they had Wilder's description and the car he was driving, that he was driving a Pontiac Firebird. He did, however, like change plates out, but still sparkly gold Pontiac Firebird.
Yeah.
Donnette, meanwhile, like her experience with Christopher and Tina for the 3 days she was with them, she really actually thought Tina was an accomplice. And why she said like later, this was like her 16-year-old, self, where she felt like Tina didn't help her. Tina could have
Yeah.
escaped so many times and didn't escape from Donnette's point of view. And Wilder had mostly spent the time that Donnette was with them assaulting Donnette, although at one point he had forced the girls to have sex with each other.
Oh,
She said that was
jeez.
the only time she felt like Tina was doing something kind of against her will. So when she was giving her report on what happened, there was a question as to whether Tina was a willing participant in this rather than a captive. And so there started to be news reports like, does this top 10 criminal have an accomplice? Like, is this woman helping, is this girl,
This
16-year-old
16-year-old
girl
girl
helping lure victims?
Helping an adult man.
And it still plagues her to this day. Like I got on a Reddit chat because I was trying to find some information, and people are still like, I still don't trust Tina's story. How do you not escape? How do you
Oh
make
my
the choices?
gosh.
It's just, I mean, think what you will. She was 16 and she had been tortured and like mentally abused and manipulated. And he had a gun. Like she was scared. And she was immediately like, well, I mean, I'll tell you, I'm getting ahead of myself.
I mean, just having been in risky situations where you have to go along to get along, like you don't know until you're in those situations. And so
Right.
those people are speaking from a place of ignorance.
And God help they're never in that situation.
Yeah,
God
I
change
hope
their
that they
tune.
never are, but just like,
And just the way your mind works when you're
Yeah.
in shock.
yeah.
Like it's
and,
never what you would think.
and when you're just like, I don't know if I can get out of this alive. Like it's
Yeah.
just so scary. And anyway,
Yeah.
poor Tina.
So Tina, meanwhile, had been told by Chris that she was going to be driven to New York and released, but he starts towards Canada. And he had no idea that Donnette was alive. He didn't know that Beth had been found until he heard the news broadcast that night. And so when he saw in the news that Donnette had lived, Beth's body had been found, and they knew that he was driving the Firebird, he drove Tina the next morning to the Boston airport, gave her $1,000 in cash, and told Tina he was going to let her go. They walked into the airport and he bought her a ticket under using Kimbrell's credit card and using like the name Tina Kimbrell. And at that time, like this was 84 before you had to present ID and you could just get a plane ticket just by saying your name. So she was Tina Kimbrell and he got her on a flight. He asked her to walk him back out after they bought the ticket to the parking lot where he kissed her goodbye and said, tell the FBI I'm headed to Canada and like give him this message. They'll get a kick out of that. And then he like stroked her hair, told her he loved her. And she's so confused. Like she'd been abused by him, but like Stockholm syndrome, she said it was she said it was sad and like nostalgic. And this was a 16-year-old Tina reporting. Like it was like so nostalgic. It was so sad. He kissed me goodbye and he told me I'd be all right. I just need to write a book about it. And those are his parting words.
Totally trauma bonded.
Yeah. She never did write a book, by the way. Like she has not received financial gain from this. She hasn't sought it. I mean, as far as I know, she hasn't sought financial gain or received any.
You said earlier, like she gave her FBI report and then just left it in the past.
I think that she had done one like a year later, like one short interview for some TV show. And then I think that she just was like, people think I'm complicit. I can't.
Gotta get away.
Yeah. And Donette did no interviews. None until this Hulu documentary.
Wow.
Which was released last May of 2024. So she goes in, her flight's not leaving for a few hours. So she goes into the airport and she just said that she bought some French fries and just ate them and sobbed and laughed. She just said that she didn't know what emotion to feel because she was like joy. She couldn't believe it and just ate the French fries and cried and laughed. And then she got on the plane and I don't know, she must have been flying first class. He must have bought her a first class ticket because she said people were real critical that she didn't immediately like tell airport staff, I'm Tina Marie Risico. I'm, a victim of kidnapping. He just left. She did tell a man on first class and he just said to her like, oh, I hope everything works out for you. And didn't say anything. Like they never found that man or questioned him or anything.
Whoa.
He wished her good luck. That's what he said. Well, I wish you good luck. So when she got back to LA and she had been in the same clothes for 9 days and had only had a couple of showers and she felt disgusting. So this is another thing she'd been criticized for is she immediately had the taxi take her to a store called the Tushery, which was a clothing store, but mostly a lingerie store. And so people are like, why would she have him drive her to a lingerie store? Clearly, this is not a girl who was a victim, but she needed new underwear.
People.
So she had the taxi driver take her there, asked him to wait for her, went and got new clothes, then had the taxi take her to her boyfriend's house, went to the boyfriend's, she showered, she changed, and then the boyfriend got her to call the police. So the police interviewed her and they brought along a psychologist and everyone who talked to her is on the same page. She was not complicit. She was not a willing participant. She was 100% a victim of Christopher Wilder. And they really made that clear to reporters, but reporters still didn't let up. Like
it's the 80s, like reporters are just.
I mean, it's the same way now. I don't even feel like, I feel like it's.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
People just want a headline and that was a headline that would sell. So meanwhile, Wilder, after he left the Boston airport, attempted to kidnap another woman in Massachusetts. Her name was Carol Hilbert and she was 19 and he pulled a gun on her and she just screamed and ran away instead of getting in the car, which is actually what they tell you to do, that if a gun is pulled, run away and scream. Don't get in. You're way more likely to survive. Like even if they shoot at you, they're more likely to miss or to not hit a vital organ. So he did not chase her. He moved on. Friday, April 13th. So I think Tina had been released on the 12th. So this is the next day. Wilder stops in a tiny town about 10 miles from the Canadian border in his gold sparkly Pontiac Firebird, where he is spotted by 2 state troopers. And these state troopers were looking for a particular license plate because when they gave the bolo, they give the license plate. But they still were like, what's this guy doing in this fancy sparkly gold car? And mostly they noticed that Wilder was behaving weird. They were in an undercover cop car. They were like in an, not undercover, but unmarked police car. But they said that they could tell Wilder spotted them and knew they were cops. So they were like, let's just keep a watch on this guy. They didn't quite make the connection yet that this was Wilder until they then checked the bolo and they were like, hey, actually, this guy we're looking for is driving a sparkly gold Pontiac Firebird. we should go check this out. So they drive into the gas station parking lot, and Wilder started acting really nervous, and he's trying to open the driver's door to his car, and he can't because it's locked. So he's fumbling and getting at his keys. And then he's getting the lock open, and the cops pull up, and they're like, hey, we need you to stop and talk to us. And he gets really nervous, and he stutters, and he just like bolts and tries to like open the car door. One of the officers gets up, grabs Wilder by the arm, and pins his elbows like this. Wilder, though, had already been like part of his body was in the car. And what this officer didn't know, and this officer's name is Leo Jellison. This is Leo Jellison. The other officer is Wayne Fortier, Fortier. Leo did not know that when Wilder had opened the door, he had grabbed a gun. So he has his arms pinned, but Wilder's hand is free. All of a sudden, he hears a gunshot, and Leo feels like a brief moment of pain. And he pushes Wilder forward and sees a spot of red on Wilder's back. And then he's like, oh, this guy just shot himself. But he doesn't quite register that the bullet had traveled through Wilder and gone into Jellison's chest.
Oh,
So Jellison had been shot. He lets go of Wilder, and then he starts to realize he's been shot. So as soon as he lets go of Wilder, he goes around the other side to get into the other side of the door, and he hears another shot. And Wilder shoots himself a second time and falls dead. So he realizes he has a chest wound. He gets into the trooper's car. The clerk, meanwhile, had already called the police. The police were on their way, but they radioed for more help. And they were in such a small town that the media had a lot of trouble getting there. Like all these news helicopters were trying to find places to land, and they couldn't land because there had been a rainstorm and all the fields were really boggy. So this tiny little town just became inundated with big news vans that couldn't even figure out how to get there. But they had stopped at FBI's 10 most wanted criminal. I think he was actually number 1 on the list at that point, and had stopped the murders from happening.
Oh,
so Christopher Wilder's brother, Stephen, who's the next oldest under Christopher, said that the news of Wilder's death was a relief. That he, of course, said it was mixed feelings, but that it was such a relief to know that his brother wasn't hurting anybody else and couldn't hurt anybody else. And Stephen had been in the United States, like when the spree started and the FBI was hunting him, Stephen came over to help the FBI just in case they got a hold of him and wanted to talk to a family member. So Stephen had been cooperating with the FBI the entire time. So the Kenyans had been waiting and watching this chase, like watching the progress of Wilder and the victims, just hoping that he would be captured and that his capture would lead to the location of their daughter. And when they got the phone call that Wilder had died, Beth's brother said it was just like the breath of air left all of their bodies. The mother collapsed and just knew that she'd never find Beth. Dolores died like 10 years later, and the family says she died of a broken heart.
Oh, gosh.
Just never recovered. Beth's dad said that Beth's death just destroyed one generation of their family. But like with Beth's brother, this younger generation was starting to heal, and Beth is now like a memory. The kids are all taught about her. They eventually put her name on the family mausoleum, even though they never had bodies. They put her name there, and they talk about her and like celebrate her every year. Beth's dad he was a property developer. He named a plaza after her and a road after her. And Beth's brother said, I know Beth is in heaven, and I know Christopher Wilder will never make it there, and that gives him peace.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the Gonzalez's parents, and their names are Haiti and Bless, aren't those?
Oh.
They just stopped living, like stopped celebrating anything, stopped living their lives at all. They were so devastated. Rosario, if you remember, she had a sister named Lisette, and Lisette said that their lives were just robbed from them and they never really quite recovered. When Lisette had a baby, they sort of started celebrating again and healed a little bit and just started focusing attention on Lisette's young family. Rosario's fiance, Bill, because remember she was engaged, went to the church on the day they were supposed to be married and like lit a rosary for her and prayed.
Oh, Nettie.
It was just so sad.
So sad.
When he said it just became a ritual, and I don't know how long he kept it up. I hope he married someone else and moved on.
Yeah.
But
just really loved her.
Oh gosh, they were just so in love. And then on the first Mother's Day after Rosario went missing, Haiti and Bless went to Christopher Wilder's home and tried to break in to look for evidence. They just were like, we're going to do this ourselves because the police haven't found anything.
Yeah.
But the neighbors saw them and called the cops and thought it was a break-in. So the cops came, and they said the cops were super gentle with them and just didn't press charges, let them go, escorted them home,
Uh-huh.
and just were like understanding that these were just two broken-hearted parents.
Just wanting to try anything.
Yeah. Linda Grover, the survivor, if you remember her, one of the survivors.
Mm-hmm.
This is a quote from her. She said, when she found out he died, she said, "I was sad he died with information that families would want to know. People say I'm strong. I don't know if I was strong. I was lucky. I had a strategy, and I was lucky it worked. The exact strategy might not have worked the next day. I was excited that I got a second chance at life, so I evolved. I learned more and more about the girls that didn't get a second chance and decided that I was in many ways living on their behalf,
Oh,
and I needed to do something worthwhile."
oh my gosh.
She said, "These women that were killed were amazing, productive, beautiful women, nurses, people helping kids with disabilities, and I felt guilty that I survived. I was just a college girl with no direction,
Oh gosh.
without a compass, and I had one horrible day that man took from me. I was not going to let him take my life." And she said that she just made a goal to make something of herself, so she became a marine biologist and has had a very successful career. So Tina and Donette, the other two survivors, both stayed quiet, not taking interviews. I think Tina only did one for an FBI TV show like a year later. Donette did none. Both of them, though, participated in Hulu's The Beauty Queen Killer, 9 Days of Terror, and they both talked about what that event did to their lives. And like Donette has really done well. I mean, both of them have. They have never spoken to each other, like since the kidnapping.
Wow.
But Donette said that it took her a while to realize that Tina was a victim as well, that she had anger for a lot of years because she just didn't understand. Because in her mind, she's thinking, I would have escaped. I wouldn't have helped kidnap the girl. She didn't know that Tina was being threatened at gunpoint, you know.
Yeah. And Tina's background that kind of made her a prime.
But if Tina had though said, no, I'm not going to do it. Like, I think the reason why Wilder didn't kill her is just because she complied with everything.
Yes, I agree.
So it's just so awful. So after this, Wilder became the lead suspect in the Wanda Beach murders of Christine Chirac and Marianne Schmidt in 1965. But as I stated in the last episode, the DNA sample that they kept, that they tried to retest in like 2011 or 2013 was lost. They still can't find it. He is the suspect in the disappearance of Tammy Jo Alexander from Brooksville, Florida in 1979. So they're now thinking that he probably actually started murdering earlier and just wasn't caught. 1979, that was Tammy Jo Alexander. He is also a suspect in the disappearance of Mary Oppitz, and she went missing in Fort Myers, Florida on January 16th, 1981. She was at a mall with her mom and brother, and she told her mom and brother she was going to go wait in the car. She had bought a pretzel, so she was taking her pretzel out to the car to eat it. When her mother came out an hour later, Mary was nowhere to be seen, and the pretzel was sitting on the hood of the car. But police said that she was a runaway because they said if she had been kidnapped, someone would have noticed it was broad daylight.
Oh my gosh.
And they felt that way until it was like a few weeks later, on February 11th, 18-year-old Mary Elizabeth Hare disappeared from the same parking lot, also in the middle of the day. Mary Hare's body was found in a field in a remote, undeveloped area, and she had been stabbed in the back, very similar to the stab wounds of other Wilder's victims. Mary Oppitz's body has never been found. He's also a suspect in the death of 17-year-old Tina Marie Beebe, who disappeared in January 20th, 1981. So that would have just been right after Mary Opitz, like same year. And she told her sister she had been offered a modeling job, and her skeletal remains were discovered inside a green nylon bag near Wilder's property a year later. And her remains were not identified until 2013 using DNA, but they're still not sure if she's a Wilder victim or not, but they think so. A lot of these cases, the police said that they're 90% sure, but they don't want to close it until they're 100% sure. In December 19th, 1982, a real estate agent out inspecting land discovered the decomposed remains of a female who has not been identified. She had been shot once in the head, but this was prior to him having a gun, so they're not sure if it was him. But they call her the Palm Beach County Jane Doe.
Gosh.
And then Sherry Lynn Ball, a 20-year-old aspiring model, went missing June 27th, 1983 from Boca Raton, Florida, telling her relatives she was going to New York to pursue a modeling career. She was found October 29th, 1983, but was not identified till 2014. And she was found less than 40 miles from where Tammy Jo Alexander's body was found, was one of the previous ones I mentioned. And then Tammy Lynn Leppert, 18, was last seen on July 6th at Cocoa Beach, Florida. Her mother said that Wilder and Tammy had met, and I think I talked about this last episode, filming Spring Break, and police were unable to link Wilder to Leppert definitively, but she had told friends she was going to meet a man who was going to further her modeling and movie career. Frances and Don Ferguson, those were the parents of Teresa Ferguson, who was the first confirmed murder victim. Their marriage did not survive, and she moved back to Cape Cod, and she found out later, like when the book that was the Snapshot Killer, she found when the author interviewed her, he said, "Hey, did you ever get a chance to read the letter that your ex-husband sent to the detectives in Australia?" And she did not know. And like,
Oh gosh.
she had no idea that he even cared for her that much and that he had worked so hard to try to find out more about Christopher Wilder and what happened. So this letter's short. I'm going to read it real quick. This is to Detective Shelley in Australia. "You and I have never met, nor in all probability will we. Yet I have a very important request to make of you. I am personally having difficulty with my own and federal government getting information on Christopher Bernard Wilder's past. Was he an American with a passport to Australia, or an Australian with a passport to the United States, or was he both? I cannot find out. Could you, without jeopardizing or violating your country's security or regulations, pass on this information or any other information you have to me? I will, of course, reimburse you for any fee on reports or copies entailed. If you are curious as to why I write, it is not as a fellow law enforcement officer."
Oh, Nettie. Do you want me to read this next part?
Yes, right there. It is because.
"It is because I had a bright, beautiful, funny 21-year-old daughter whom I loved with my whole heart. She was Wilder's first confirmed victim. Nothing will bring her back, and my insides will live with this hurt until I die. But now there is a desperate need to know more about the man himself. Could you help? Yours truly, Captain Donald H. Ferguson."
Yeah, that's it. That's the crazy story of the 8 confirmed, but 20, possibly more, lovely women who were victims of Christopher Wilder, also known as the Beauty Queen Killer.
Oh, wow, Nettie. That was amazing.
Didn't you both find things about this guy?
I'm curious. I mean, I had read some of those comments of people that had
Experiences with him?
interactions with who they suspect was Christopher Wilder, which, obviously to anybody that did have those kinds of interactions where, a man with his description, matching his description, approached and asked about modeling, like that would feel like such a close call. I wasn't quite sure though, because the ones that I read I couldn't quite match them with the timeline that you were sharing with his locations, unless he added stops, that weren't confirmed.
It's possible he did.
There was a girl in Kansas who said that he approached her and she asked him for a business card, and he said he didn't have one, and she was worried that she gave him the idea to add legitimacy to his routine by providing business cards. But I mean that could be true if it happened much earlier than the killing spree that you just described.
Yeah.
But I just didn't, there was no, I mean, but that's all. Yeah. Haley, you go ahead and share.
So this woman, she was at the beach with her friends, and this man, she found out later it was Christopher Wilder, approached her and her friends and then got her to like come with him and take some photos. And like she just kind of also like just did everything that he said, more risque photos. When she later learned about Christopher Wilder and then heard about Tina Risico, she like did this interview because she wants Risico to know that she's not alone, and she totally understands how he just got her under his complete coercion. And he separated her from her friends and then was like, hey, this is a test. When they were going back to her friends, he said, hey, this is a test. Pretend I said something funny. And so she like did this laugh and he was like, good job. And they like got back to her friends where she was like feeling uncomfortable, but like didn't want to like let on or anything, just totally going along with what he said. And then he was completely poised, asking about life goals, commentary about fashion. And then he like leaves and waves and drives away.
Wow.
Separated her from her friends. And then like she just like looking back, she's just like
Close.
Tina. I
Feels like she had a close call. So maybe that was before. I mean, I don't know if we know the timeline of that, but maybe that was before he had escalated his impulses, you know?
I think I
Yeah.
missed the date on it. June 1977. So yeah, he was still
In his like just
practicing.
photographing stage as far as we know.
and like practicing interacting.
Photographing and deceiving and manipulating. Like he was for sure escalating.
Yeah.
Well, and I was thinking about like Beth Kenyon was the one that he had asked to marry him.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, he obviously was the one that did something with her, most likely murdered her. And like the rejection that so many, when you hear about serial killers like Ted Bundy, like they say that the trigger for him starting to kill women was most likely when he felt that rejection by the girl he was dating, who was from a wealthy family. And then he actually got back together with her just to break up with her.
Yeah, she accepted his marriage proposal later, and then he just disappeared on her and started murdering.
It was like he was so hurt by it that it was like, get back together. And I almost wonder if it was the same thing with Christopher Wilder. It's like Beth said, he was so calm. He took it so well. He totally understood. But really, he's probably going, what does this bitch think she is? I'm going to get back. So then he calls her with a modeling proposal, gets her
alone.
And I mean, I don't know. It seems likely that he had murdered before Beth Kenyon, but I wondered if that's kind of like what got him.
Set him on his crazy path.
And also, he's just a bad person who hated women and wanted to control them.
Yeah. Well, it is 1:20, and you and I have to be at Jessica's at 2.
Oh gosh,
for soup party.
Well,
thank you, for listening. Gosh, I'm happy. I'm just ready to not think about this case ever again. That's how I feel.
Let it go. Eddie, you did so good.
I do recommend the Hulu documentary, 9 Days of Terror. It's a good one. Oh, and my sources are in the show notes. Yeah, put that at the beginning.
Have fun at your soup party. Love you, sisters.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. She's so pretty. Look how beautiful she is. That's it for today's episode of The Spooky Darlings. If you enjoyed hanging out with us, we'd love it if you left a review and gave us a 5-star rating. It really helps other spooky souls find the show. You can reach us anytime at thespookydarlings@gmail.com. That's thespookydarlings, all one word. Or follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Spooky Darlings Podcast for photos, extras, and behind-the-scenes peeks at each episode. Also, we now have merch. You can peruse the Spooky Darlings selection of t-shirts, sweatshirts, totes, and hats at thespookydarlings.printful.me. That's thespookydarlings, all one word, .printful.me. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and stay spooky, darling. 5 stars. Before we disappear into the shadows, don't forget, we're still sending out vinyl stickers. Leave us a rating and review and email us proof to thespookydarlings@gmail.com, along with your mailing address, and we'll send you some spooky snail mail while supplies last. And if your heart is still mourning that tote bag, may we gently tempt your way toward our merch store at thespookydarlings.printful.me. Treat yourself. You deserve it. Thanks for listening. And as always, stay spooky.